Well, hello there and welcome to another episode of Travels with Geordie. This fine fella here is my pup Geordie, and lately we've been mostly restoring a wooden motor cruiser here in this marina in Victoria, British Columbia. But it's time to do a bit of an episode on the truck, the 1959 Land Rover that's been my truck for quite some time, and it's been Geordie's home for most of his life. While we were traveling, of course, and before that this truck was my work truck where he spent every single day with me. So some of you may recognize this truck if you've been following along. This again is a vintage Series 2 Land Rover that's been quite heavily modified, and those of you who do know its story a little bit will know something about it, but I thought it might be interesting to do a little bit of a summary on the truck for those who are not familiar with it, especially because the truck is going to be rather pivotal to the next few episodes. Good news. Cheers! Okay, quick overview. The base truck is a 1959 Series 2 Land Rover, civilian model. I found it in a barn in Nova Scotia, the way all great Land Rovers are found. I rebuilt it twice. Once stock in around 2007, and then when I realized that my construction company needed a full-size work truck, I decided that instead of buying a Chevy something or other or an F-250 or something, I'd build the truck up capable enough to do the work I need to do it, as well as have it as my daily driver. So that worked out really well. As a result, the truck is relatively heavily modified, which I might have mentioned. So up front, it has a Chevrolet 4.3 liter fuel injected V6 engine out of a Chevy pickup truck. Basically, the one that went into it came out of a Sonoma. Behind that is a New Venture 3550 5-speed American transmission, which this one came out of a Cherokee. Behind that is a specialized adapter plate made by Advanced Adapters to adapt that transmission and those like it to the Series transfer case. This is getting too technical, I'll move on, but from there on it's stock Land Rover. Stock Series Land transfer case with the high ratio kit from Ashcroft, stock front drive shaft, stock front axle. Rear drive shaft, stock. It has the military Salisbury, which is basically a Dana 60 rear axle, relatively rare, super nice. It also has an ARB air locker in it, so pretty bulletproof in the rear end, which is important because it was built to be a tow vehicle, and I built this relatively heavy Class 4 style hitch for it to tow around a backhoe and a work trailer and all kinds of heavy trailers. Effectively, it was perfect then for towing around the Airstream when that happened. Other than that, it's got the relatively rare 1-ton rims on it, which are really nice. They're extra deep. It has 255 85/16 BF Goodrich MT tires on it, which are getting a little worn, but they're 10 years and lots of miles. I mean, they're an amazing, amazing tire. Up front, we have a custom-built, super heavy duty, welded out of tube by a fantastic fellow in Nova Scotia. Pete, if you're there, thanks so much. Worn hubs. It's got 1 3/8" wheel spacers. A couple of reasons for that: to increase my turning radius so that the wheels would turn tight, and it also gives you return to center steering, which is really nice, especially because the truck has power steering, power brakes, a few other tricks. Let's look under the hood. This is a civilian truck, so it originally had the civilian style hood latch and not these military style jobbies. But you'll see in a moment, when I had to put the new radiator in for the V6 conversion, there wasn't any room for that anymore, so I had to go to these. Plus, by the time you put this thing on the hood, it's no chance it's going up by accident. Okay, this has been here 10 years without much attention, so it's looking pretty grubby, but let's have a look. Okay, so there she is in all her glory. That is the early throttle body fuel-injected Chevy V6 4.3, which is basically the 6-cylinder version of the classic small block Chevy, the 350. It's fuel-injected, even though it looks like it has a carburetor on here. That's basically a throttle body, fuel injection body, and so it takes a regular carburetor-style air filter. It only has a few sensors, and they're really very simple. Don't worry about it too much. As I said, I had to modify what they call the breakfast, which is a radiator panel here, to put in this aluminum radiator and a pusher fan, and it had to be tipped backwards so that I could get past the headlight buckets, but it actually worked out relatively well. You can see there's a few simple wiring morettes and stuff on here because, as I said so many times, the moment I got this truck running 10 years ago, I stopped working on it. I just started driving it. So the great thing about the 4.3 in the Land Rover is it's so tiny. It's only this long. So there's no need to modify the firewall, which we call a bulkhead. There's tons of room back there, so that really helped out. The magic, I don't know if you can see down there, is some headers. They're actually stainless steel. I'm not quite sure what kind of shape they're in now, but they're block-hugging headers, so they were able to make sure that the engine slipped in between the frame rails relatively easily, which is important because the engine is offset to the driver's side by about 2.5 inches. And so it's very, very tight on this side. I don't know what you can see down there. Let's have a quick look under the fender well and you might be able to see what I'm talking about. See through there? That is very, very tight there, but it fits. Also from here you can get a view of, if I just slide you in and up, this is the International Harvester Scout power steering box, which is a relatively common power steering conversion for series Land Rovers, and that worked out really, really well. So a couple of other things under here that you might find interesting are the brakes. You'll notice there's no brake booster. Well, there is actually. This is called a Hydraboost brake booster. It uses hydraulic fluid, basically uses extra hydraulic pressure from the power steering pump. This was used on a lot of Chevy pickups, the Astro vans, a few things like this. This unit came out of an Astro van, and the classic, what they call the Corvette Chevy standard, you know, dual reservoir master cylinder work fine. The pedal tower itself is the original Series 3 style, which pushes forward. And anyway, if you're into Land Rover stuff, you know what I'm talking about. Other than that, pretty straightforward up here. For Land Rover enthusiasts, I want to point out something that's really, really great. This is the late 2A heater. Now, very similar to the Series 3 heater. In other words, it takes the big Series 3 core and works really remarkably well, except the way the duct works on the inside, it doesn't pump it up into the Series 3 dash plastic ridiculous thing. It actually sends it into the footwell like a Series 2 heater would do. So late Series 2A heater boxes are the slick setup. And I'm driving it with a big marine blower and a bunch of ABS pipe, which has worked fabulously. You'll have noticed in here the entire bulkhead has been rhino lined. Underneath the rhino lining is some very heavy-duty sound insulation. You can see me pressing on it there, and underneath that is a fully galvanized, fully restored bulkhead. The equity in this bulkhead is insane. You can see also I went a bit overboard on the rubber wire cabling system. I really like using these multi-core pure rubber extension cord type wire for stuff because it brings a bunch of conductors. Anyway, we won't get into that too much, but it worked out really, really well. That's enough under the hood. Some of you are just getting done with this. Now, if you look at the way the truck is set up right now, it's in what I call winter mode. It's in the pickup cab mode. In other words, it has a pickup cab on it, and I put a tonneau cover on so I can keep stuff under the cover over the winter. This was my winter setup, mostly on the east coast of Canada where it snows. Here it's not so crucial because it doesn't get cold, but any day now, in fact today, in fact later in this episode, I'm going to remove the pickup cab and put on the summer full-length canvas top, which in Britain they call it tilt, and that's my summer setup, and I leave it rolled up all the time. Really, really nice. So let's have a quick look inside. There's some shame here. What do you think, Geordie? Hey buddy, hey buddy boy, a little tour of the truck. Okay, so inside pretty stock. From here you really couldn't tell that it's too heavily modified, with the exception that the entire bulkhead is rhino lined. That is true. The other thing, the shameful part is as soon as I got the truck running in 2009, basically for its test drive, I stopped working on it and it's been hanging like that ever since. Did put some new seats in last year because these Bearmac nasty Series 3 seats, they give you a couple years, especially if you're road tripping much. And Geordie doesn't think much of them because they're not very deep. What do you think, pup? Some things here of note. Land Rover enthusiasts will recognize that this is a very strange dashboard. Very rare. This is a North American dealers area or NADA spec 109 dashboard. Very rare. Small keyhole. 2 switches here, and even that's been modified because I removed the charging ports here, or the 12-volt port, whatever they call it, and put in another switch here. All these switches are really nice marine style, rubber booted. Love them, just love them. When I first built the truck, I was concerned about its ability to haul very heavy loads because it needed to do that. You can see it's quite high right now because it's got some heavy duty springs on it. But originally I put very, very light springs on it and airbags. Yes, airbags. So that the suspension could be adjusted. Not so much for its height so much, but for its resiliency. So to do that, I basically had an air system that's an onboard compressor, and these 4 regulators could adjust the air pressure in all 4 corners of the truck. The neat thing about that is if I had a heavy load in the back, I could add some more spring loading in the back. If I had some reason to adjust it in the front, I could lift the truck up and down almost 7 inches. It was kind of silly. And one other neat thing I could do, if I was on the trail and a tree was coming along a little close to the cab, I could tip the truck over. It was kind of fun. I've abandoned that. It worked great. It gave a fantastic ride, but it added a level of complexity which I don't need anymore because the truck is just a car, and so I've replaced all the airbags with brand new parabolic Rocky Mountain springs. Now I've used 3 leafs in the rear, which are a bit stiff, which is why this truck is sitting so darn high. I haven't actually replaced the front springs yet, that's why it's sitting down low, because I just haven't had a chance to do it. So as we move back, the tub, or the body, or the box, whatever you want to call it, it was an absolute gem. Very fortunate. I picked it up from Ministry of Defence Spares in the UK for £200. This is a brand new, never used tub. In an era of around 1981-82, would have been a late Series 3. So I was very fortunate to have that. Plus it's ex-military, which means it has the galvanized cross members, which are very rare and very sought after. So that was really awesome. And happily I haven't put too many dents in it in the meantime. Other body parts are largely the original 1959. But any of you who've been following me since the Riverport Rover days know that there were lots of bits of Land Rovers around, so I can't really be sure that every fender panel or door skin is in fact off its original truck. I know the bulkhead, the seat box, the roof, the main parts are, but the other major thing that's different about this truck is it has a military 1-ton frame, which is quite distinctively shown off by the full rectangular rear cross member. This came out of a military base in Alberta. I think some Land Rover people will be quite familiar with that. There were quite a lot of trucks taken apart that. It would be a very late Series 3, 82-ish, and it was fully rebuilt, fully hot dip galvanized, and it's bulletproof. I just love it. The tonneau has been an absolute godsend. It's an absolute perfect thing to put on a Series Land Rover. Really love it. It's getting a little ratty after a few years, but I could always have another one made. The hoops are just galvanized conduit that I bent up on a beach in Texas. Some of you may even remember. The tub, being brand new, doesn't even have any of the rivets in here yet for the capping. In fact, capping is barely attached. Shameful, I know. So here you can see nice clean aluminum box. Never been molested too much, with the exception of this Rhino lining on it that failed miserably. It's not Rhino, it's another brand, I forget what, Reflex lining. Anywhere it froze and moisture could get on it, the moisture somehow got through, froze, spalled it off, and it was all here as well, and it came right off. So that I'll have to redo at some point. It's quite shameful. Another neat thing that Land Rover enthusiasts will be aware of is it has a rear tank. Normally the gas tank on a regular 109 pickup truck is right there, and the tank is under the seat. And I was trying to move weight back as much as possible, and I wanted to have more storage under the seat. So I grafted in a rear fill out of a station wagon. This is basically just cut out with a jigsaw, and cut a hole down through the bottom of there and put a rear tank in, which works just so smoothly. And I was able to get a fabricator to aluminum weld in a box in the bottom of the seat box, so it has lockers both sides. Well, how about the good, the bad, and the ugly? Well, if we start with the good, actually let's start with awesome, the truck itself. The truck has been so good to me. I just love it. Everything about it is basically perfect. The 4.3 Chev is the perfect Land Rover conversion, bar none. I'm sorry, there's lots of people who are going to argue, but I'm sticking with it. A lot of people say diesel, a lot of people will say all kinds of stuff, but that motor is just a workhorse. 165 horsepower, torquey up the yin-yang, tiny, cheap to maintain, incredibly cheap to buy in the first place. I just love it. The new Adventure 3550 5-speed transmission is also an absolute workhorse. Fantastic transmission. Couldn't be happier with it. Again, if we start forward, it also has the Tyrrell Rocky Mountain disc brake conversion, which is just fantastic. I absolutely adore it. What else is awesome? Color, British Racing Green. Yeah. We'll get back to bad and ugly about that in a minute, though. The Dana 60 military Salisbury rear axle, absolutely stellar, bulletproof. What I put this thing through is unbelievable. Okay, the bad. Well, paint on it is coming pretty shabby. I painted it myself, and I probably didn't do a good enough job in prep, and that's sort of evident in here. I'm okay with it, but I really would love a nice shiny paint job, so sometime soon I'll repaint it exactly the same color, of course. Bad. The aluminum radiator I showed you a little earlier, it's fine, it works great, whatever, but aluminum radiators have a limited lifespan, especially in high vibration, so I know I'm going to have trouble with that in the future. I really should buy a backup. Bad. These doors, which are either the original doors or some other doors I had lying around, and they rust down in here, and you get nasty blistering against the aluminum outside, which this has a good example of. So need new doors in the not too distant future. Back to good. The Rocky Mountain aluminum extruded door tops with double sliding windows. Absolutely love them. If you have a Series Land Rover, get them. Don't even think twice. Of course, the wiring, not so awesome, but you know what? It's almost the least of my concerns. What do you think, Pup? Does the wiring bother you? No, I didn't think so. Heated windscreens, by the way. Land Rovers, it's a factory option on some of the trucks, and you can buy them for any Series Land Rover. Okay, carry on, and here's a big ugly related to the wiring. The battery. Yeah, I bolted the battery in there into this little spare tire well the day I test drove the truck, and it hasn't moved since. Something I need to do something about. It's going to go back in that tool locker eventually. Again, moving weight back should work out pretty well. Of course, ugly, bad, whatever you want to call it, the failed rhino lining, but that's relatively repairable. And I would say on the whole, for a truck that's had almost no maintenance, and I'm talking maybe an oil change every 2 years, the truck has been absolutely fantastic to me with the work I put it through. Some of you have seen me tow an Airstream all over North America with this thing. It's been in the woods, it's had a hard life, and it's worked well for all of that. It doesn't owe me a penny. What do you think, Pop? It's getting hot. That means time to take the roof off. Okay, so it all begins with these door tops, which are removable. Slick, eh? Held on with 2 bolts. Very straightforward. Instant Roadster. Okay. And there you go. Okay, so a row of bolts across the windshield and a couple more at the back, and it is disconnected. What do you think, Pop? Yeah. Topless. And then there we go, just like that, we have a little British Racing Green Roadster. What do you think, Pop? Yeah, that's good fun. That's good fun. This is a very pleasant way to drive around, let me tell you. But the truth is, I can only keep it like this for so long because it gets too hot in another couple of weeks for Geordie to sit out in the sun. So that's why he needs the shade, and we'll add the full canvas top, which you'll see probably in the next few minutes. The magic of the internet. Okay, Pop, let's go for a ride. Okay, so interesting messing with time here a little bit. Yes, we're about to put the canvas top on the roof, although it is several weeks later, and I have Kate here to help me with it, so that worked out really well. Okay, so let's get the tonneau off and the canvas top on. And the tilt is on. It's ready for summer fun.
We should go on a road trip.
We should go on a road trip. We should go on a road trip. Awesome. I love the way you start into it.
All right.
Okay, well, we're here with Beer of the Week, and we're here with Ike Goss.
That's me.
And this man is, if not the God, the Jesus of all things Land Rover, at least in North America. really, how did you get into Land? What was your first Land Rover?
My first Land Rover was a Series 2A 88,
Yeah.
and I think like a lot of people who got into Land Rovers, they saw one and it spoke to them. The
And-
clouds parted, you know, there
Right.
was the angels sang,
Right.
there was a beam of sunshine,
Exactly.
and that was it. That
Yeah.
was it. I was hooked,
Hooked.
and I still am.
Okay, listen, we're going to try something. I just grabbed it. Have you had this?
I have not. What is it? What's the name of it?
Triceratops.
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 I
This
like
is
it.
pretty tacky.
Right.
Triceratops. Picked this up in the local grocery store, but I was determined to have a bomber, and believe me, I'm in craft beer central here, right?
You are
And-
ground zero.
And I kind of blew it, but
Ground zero.
we had to get something quick. I also only have road glasses, so you know we can have a couple of shots out of this.
You know, I'll allow it.
You'll allow it. Okay, so you're Land Rover Restoration Hall of Fame, but now some expedition stuff.
Yeah, you know, we're trying to do more trips, you know, including the Land Rovers, of course, but I think that as time goes by, you know, I want to use the Land Rovers more and more, and
Right.
I want to experience what they can do and where they can take me, and I think this is a method to do that.
Let's do it.
Yeah.
Well, I'm really hoping I can join in some of
Cheers.
these road trips here. So cheers. So to all great things Land Rover and Land Rover Expedition.
Here, here.
Here. Cheers.
Not horrible.
Just another
It's
IPA.
good. It's good. Just another IPA.
Just another IPA here in the Pacific Northwest.
Yeah,
Definitely
that's probably
drinkable.
true. Drinkable. All
Definitely
right.
drinkable.
Have you had a beer that's not drinkable?
Yes. I've had a few that were not all that good. I have to do a little bit of housekeeping here.
All
And
right.
that is to thank all my past patrons. I really appreciate that. That's been great that you've been along. And a little bit maybe of a spoiler. You can see we're not in Victoria. Well, you might have got a little clue that we're on a road trip. Caitlin and I are in Eugene, Oregon, on our way somewhere. Stay tuned. Thanks
Cheers.
a lot, Ike. It's been fantastic.
No problem. Thanks for having me.
It's drinkable.
I like it.
What about that sexual history?
We'll work up to it. We'll work up to it.
Okay, folks, well, you'll have to excuse the late upload. We were on this beach in Oregon overnight, and as a result, didn't have much in the way of Wi-Fi or internet of any sort. But we're running to town, and we'll find a Wi-Fi hotspot somewhere, and then you'll get to see it.
Tell me while I'm putting my pants on.
Yeah, that's what I'm doing.